Hey there guys, today this is going to be a very important review to me. I've structured it a little bit more than my previous ones. If this is your first time finding me, welcome to See Through Screen, and this is my review on Crazy Rich Asians. Really, Haley? The film follows Rachel Chu. She is a American Chinese living in New York, and she has a long-term partner named Nick. Now, Nick is invited to a wedding back in his home country of Singapore, where his family resides. So Nick finds that as an opportunity to, well, go on a holiday, also bring her along to meet Nick's family. However, trouble ensues as Rachel finds herself with conflicting cultures and dealing with the surprise fact that Nick's family is actually crazy rich. I'm gonna leave it at that as kind of the introduction to this film. Before we actually get stuck into it, I actually really want to just, contextualize the film a little bit. So if I'm gonna look down at my phone, I've got notes. I don't remember all these actors' names, so we're gonna bear with me. The film is directed by John Chu. This film is the first, actually, Hollywood film that has majority either Chinese, Asian, or American Asian actors being the main part of the film. This is an important thing to just hang on to for the minute. We'll talk about the actors. The actors that are starring in this film, who plays Rachel, is Constant Wu, Nick, Henry Golding, and a few other notable ones if you are familiar with these actors, like Gemma Chan and most notably Michelle Yeoh. I probably butchered that last name, but those are just a few of the names that are out there. I just wanted to introduce them because those were my favorite performances out of this film. But again, we'll get stuck into the meat of the film in a second. But I want to kind of introduce why this film is important to me. Now, I'm Singaporean, actually. I am also a first generation migrant. I moved to Australia when I was about 4 or 5. But that is my place of birth, which makes for this film to be very interesting and also quite emotional for me. It's the reason why I'm kind of giving it this deeper review. Now, I've never seen a mainstream Hollywood film that has a majority cast of leading Asian actors and actresses. Now, I'm not going to take too much of a industry point. I mean, above all else, I know that if you guys are new here, story is the most important thing to me above all else. But I want to make sure that I say that it's actually quite important, and I think I'm quite grateful that we have this diversity and representation now for Asian people, and also the film itself representing its nuance. I guess the word is nuance. It's a way of showing perhaps different cultures, or a nuanced idea of culture and what that means in a Western setting, because this is a rom-com. I did the little summary of the plot. She is an outsider, a commoner for all intents and purposes. We've seen this story before. We've seen the underdog tale, of showing that you are more than the social class you're born into, or all that we've seen before. Now, what I love about this film is that it's a good thing that this is a westernized rom-com, and it's not superficial that it's representing, I guess, it's not representing an Asian take or anything like that. It's more that by having this genre, it allows the movie to bring depth and humanizes these stereotypes. And this is kind of why I'm contextualizing the film before I delve into it. It's because the film's just not just for Asian people, it's for immigrants or anyone who's felt that they are not in tune with the social class they're supposed to be in, or the culture they're supposed to be in, or not be in. And it deals with a lot of those tensions in between those two themes. And with all that, when it all collides, we then also can explore the tension between family and also individuality. And it's a big bowl of salad mixed in with a lot of fresh takes on theme and themes I've seen before, but nothing as relatable for me personally. I try not to be too biased. I mean, the review is biased, but I do want to say that this film really touched my heart because of that contextualization. So with the stage kind of set a little bit, let's delve into the film. I really want to start off with the characters. From Rachel to Nick to even the mother-in-law, these characters all were unique, recognizable, and also worthy of inclusion. There was never really a point where I found a character, irregardless of whether they're there for just humor or, you know, pure parody or criticizing. They were all there for a reason. They felt like they were meant to be there. That is what holds up this film the most. Not saying that it needs to hold up a lot. A lot of the other elements all stand together strong, but specifically the characters was a very much enjoyable part of this film. As I mentioned before, the whole cast is either Asian, Chinese, American Chinese. They have an Asian background, and this is that also ties into the kind of narrative and the setting, but this leads to a lot of fantastic humor and interactions between these characters. Take Rachel, for example. She is the fish out of water, so to speak. She is the character who carries us as the audience along this movie. Her introduction to the different families and how the different crazy rich Asians deal with wealth and their place in their society. That to and from characters, in particular with Rachel and perhaps some of the more antagonistic characters. You know, they're clearly meant to be not envied, but rather loathed. And not only can we also, you know, make fun and enjoy these kind of caricatures of Asian stereotypes, but the characters are self-aware of those stereotypes. Rachel is dealing with Asian stereotypes, which is kind of a bit of a meta thing when you, as an audience member, not because I'm Asian, but also just understanding, you know, Western culture, bring that Western culture into this very high-end Asian culture. Those two type of characters, when they mix, it creates a relatable tension. It creates a relatable enjoyment with every character. I'll talk about a few of my characters, a few of my favorite characters. Some of the characters in there are actually Singaporean, and there are certain idiosyncratic or traits and behaviors that is so common of Singaporean people, and not just as a you know, Singaporean rich people, but just Singaporeans as a whole. It touched me a little bit. It made me miss home a lot. And no, I won't start crying, maybe later, but and it pays off. It pays off because the humor, irregardless of whether you understand why it's funny because of the way they talk or they sound a certain way, you're still going to get enjoyment of how the character speaks and what they say and the comedy that's delivered. So instead of assimilating these characters straight into these Western parts in the film of a Western genre, they tore down that, replaced it with Asian stereotypes, but then also brought all of it back down and humanized those stereotypes. And that's what I love about those characters in the film. Now, in terms of entertainment, hands down, it was emotional, it was funny, it was light, it was, you know, heavy when it needed to be. The entertainment with the pace and the tone of the film, John Chu really got that correct. The right moments of humor were interjected when they needed to be, and humor when it didn't need to be there was taken away from certain scenes. And that pacing makes for a really entertaining experience from beginning to end. I will touch on one particular scene. Again, no, I won't try to spoil this. I will keep most of the twists and turns under wraps. But there is the wedding scene. This is probably the best wedding scene I've ever experienced in any film in at least a long time. It is gorgeous. Okay, all right. You know what? I'm being biased. One of my favorite emotional kind of love songs, I guess, is "Can't Help Falling in Love with You" by Elvis Presley. There is a cover of this in that wedding scene, and that music backed up with the point in the film that scene kind of is at, then also layer on top of that the cinematography and how the wedding set is then dressed, and how the characters are aligned, and the things they use to make this such a unique wedding. All those layers combined together just kind of opened up the floodgates when it came to really not only enjoying the wedding scene as you would enjoy a wedding in real life, and tears of joy, etc., but also it manages to use that wedding scene not to just show a plot point, but rather show character development between the other characters within the wedding, including Rachel and Nick. Specifically Rachel and Nick. There's this exchange while the bride is walking down the aisle, and they look at each other, and it's just beautiful. And I thought probably, I'm an emotional person, maybe I was gonna cry in it probably anyway, but then the characters are reacting with that kind of same emotion. Like, they know where they are in this beautiful wedding, a very emotional wedding, but they have their own trials and tribulations going on at the same time. So that makes it for literally one of the most beautiful set pieces and one of the most beautiful weddings I've seen in a movie for a long time. As entertaining the film is, it also touches on a lot of themes, and a lot of themes that are not only important to me, but themes that are important for the narrative. So what I mean by that, it's that these themes, even though yes, it's a love story and it's about that kind of, that's the narrative here. The narrative is Rachel, Nick, the family, going through finding whether you fit in or should you fit in, that narrative. But the themes are not either overtly up there, as in they take over the story and reduce the quality of the characters and everything that's involved in the narrative, but nor does it become so subtle that you have to dig so deep to be aware of what the film is trying to talk about. The themes are so well crafted in with the narrative. So I think the theme of culture, it's a very important one. It's not necessarily finding where you belong. It's more so if you belong. And so that's something I'm going to talk about using me, and that's going to be a way for me to kind of work through this film a little bit easier. Now, I grew up here, just me and my family. I didn't have any other Singaporean friends or people from that heritage that I grew up with. I grew up in the Melbourne suburbs, and I grew up with that culture. And there was always a constant tension between whether I identified myself as Asian or Singaporean, or whether I saw myself as Australian. Now, that is something that ties to Rachel. She is a character who, again, grew up in America, but with Chinese or Asian values. And see how she identified herself as Chinese, but then constantly told either by her mom or this mother-in-law, or perhaps Nick at some points, that she wasn't that. And that's it's tension, and that tension is what you find in a lot of the themes of the film, including the tension between family and individuality, and respecting your family but also respecting yourself, respecting your culture but also respecting yourself. And Rachel, or us as an audience, are found in this middle, and we are given these kind of intersecting spectrums where, not to get all nerdy on you, spectrums meaning you fall on either one of these ends, but somehow the tension comes from not only finding balance or finding your place in one spectrum, but others as well. And that I found really interesting and well done within the narrative of the film. We are constantly seeing not only Rachel's tension with this new social class and specific cultural heritage. We're seeing Nick interact and explain how he feels with his culture and his family. But these themes aren't just tied to, just one or two characters, and they're explored using each, different subplot or even the main plot. They're actually intertwined with all the different characters. Each character deals with their position in their wealth and their class. What does that affect? Does it affect their marriage life? Does it affect who they are? And these themes then slowly spiral out of just being very representative Asian thematic concepts, but then spiral out to be relatable to a kind of a international or a Western setting, I guess. And what I'm trying to get at is that these themes are perhaps important to me, and I praise this film because it represents those struggles of being an immigrant and being a Asian immigrant or someone in an Asian culture, but also they are relatable enough for a wider audience. I want to kind of end it on that and leave it on that note, because if I go any further, I'm going to start going to a bit more spoiler territory. But in saying that, guys, I really want to... Ooh, sorry, Hamish, come back. With that saying, guys, I'm going to shamelessly put my dog here, because what else is going to get me views? Crazy Rich Asians is an amazing film. I really enjoyed it. I hope that if you were planning to see this film, you're probably maybe too unsure, go see it. It's really worth the time, especially off in the mood for a light comedy or a light rom-com, or you're just really wanting to see some of yourself in these characters. There's a lot in there. Alright guys, if this is your first time joining me, I hope you enjoyed this. My reviews aren't always this in-depth. I just felt like kind of taking and giving a bit of my personal insight to the film, more so than a normal review. But if you did like it, subscribe. It really means the world to me that you guys are even participating or watching this video. If you didn't like it, of course, there's going to be hopefully more videos and vlogs and reviews that you might enjoy. But before you really sign out on me, have a look at some of my other reviews. They are a bit more lighthearted, a bit more shorter than this. But if not, thank you as always for giving me a chance. It means the world to me. I say it all the time, but I really do mean it. I've got Mission Impossible coming out next, hopefully, and I've got 2 other side projects I really need to work on. But you guys will catch that news on my Instagram. I'll put the link for it, I think, on the screen and also below. Follow me on there. That's why I put out a lot of my interactions with you guys and updates of my life and what I'm doing with film and just in general. So give that a follow if you like as well. But until next time, guys, peace.